Good afternoon. So, Sunday afternoon, my three kiddos are taking a nap, and I'm doing what most parents do on a Sunday afternoon when their kids are sleeping. I'm thinking about Hamlet. All right, so we're going to turn our attention to Act 1, Scene 2. Before we get there, you have to understand. In Scene 1, we saw the ghost of King Hamlet. He's walking around, and so the guys are like, oh, it's a ghost. Okay, Scene 2, we're now inside the throne room, and King Claudius is speaking. So let's go ahead and look at Act 1, Scene 2, lines 1 through 31. And King Claudius, who is Hamlet's uncle and Hamlet's brother, is speaking. Oh, wait a second. What's the relationship here? So, King Hamlet had a son named Hamlet. The son is our Hamlet. King Claudius and King, well, he wasn't king then, but King Hamlet and Claudius are brothers. King Hamlet's dead. Then you got Queen Gertrude. Queen Gertrude was married to King Hamlet. He died. Now she's married to King Claudius. Okay, I know it gets confusing, and there's kind of the relational interplay is a big part of the story. Other thing, there's also a King Fortinbras. King Fortinbras is dead, and now his son Fortinbras wants to take over some of the land that his father had lost. So we're not going to spend too much time on that, but let's go ahead and take a look at the first couple of lines that King Claudius is saying. He says, though yet of Hamlet our dear brother's death the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with the remembrance of ourselves. All right, one thing I want you to remember is that when you're reading Shakespeare, read sentences. Don't read to the end of the line. Let's see here we've got this thing here. Don't read to the end of the line. Read to the end of the sentence. Okay? All right, for what it's worth. So here's what he's saying. He says, though yet of Hamlet our dear brother, remember Claudius was the brother of Hamlet. Hamlet is dead. And he says this memory be green, meaning it's still fresh, it's still rotting, implying that King Hamlet has not been dead for very long. And he says, our whole kingdom has been in sorrow, a brow of woe, in mourning, remembering our sweet, dear, beloved king. But then he goes on and says, together with remembrance of ourselves, therefore our sometime sister, now our queen. Sometime sister, now our queen, weird. Claudius was the brother-in-law to Gertrude, or rather she was his sister-in-law. So my sometime sister, she used to be my sister by marriage, but now she's my queen by marriage, my wife. So yeah, we've got some things going. And then it goes on, it's got these important lines here. It says, with an auspicious and drooping eye, with mirth and funeral, and with dirge and marriage. We've got the right words being used, but in odd order. Auspicious, serious, a dropping eye like a teardrop, sad because he's dead. With mirth and funeral and dirge and marriage, mirth is a word for happiness, and dirge is a word we use for funerals, like a funeral march or funeral procession, funeral dirge. Except that the words are mixed up. Mirth and funeral and dirge and marriage. So what's being communicated here is this idea of we had a sad time when the king died, but now we've got a happy time because of my wedding. So we're kind of in this in-between stage of like, we were sad, but now we're happy, and kind of getting emotions mixed up. All right, for sake of time, I'm going to kind of skip over through some of this. Essentially, he's talking about how King Fortinbras lost the land. Legally, he lost it. And now his upstart son, who does he think he is, young Fortinbras, wants to take it back? No way, dude. All right. So we're going to jump on over here to line 63. King Claudius says, but now my cousin Hamlet and my son. A little more kin and less than kind, says Hamlet. King Claudius looks on his nephew Hamlet and says, you were my nephew, but now you're my son. I know it says my cousin, but for Elizabethans, the word cousin would have been more of a Just a word like relative. You were my relative, now you're my son. Yay! And Hamlet's like, I wish we were a little bit less friendly. I wish we were a little bit less related, kin. I wish we weren't so much family related. It's getting too intermingled there. All right, King Claudius is saying, how are you doing? And Hamlet says, I'm not doing very well. He's got this great line, I am too much in the sun. Remember, the play is spoken. The audience would have been listening. Sun. What do you hear when you hear sun? Well, you could hear that big burning orb in the sky, or you can hear like, I'm the sun, you're my father. So Hamlet says, I'm not doing very well. I'm too much of a son. I was his son, now I'm your son. I don't like it. Queen Gertrude speaks up and says, oh, my boy, you're so sad. Why do you keep mourning? Don't you know that death is common? Hamlet says, yes, I know that death is common. Well, then why are you so sad? And Hamlet says, Mom, you don't even know half of it. These clothes that I'm wearing, these black, dark clothes, that only barely shows you the depth of the darkness in my soul. I am a broken person. King Claudius then starts talking about how, everyone dies. Your dad died, his dad before that died, you'll die, we'll all die, everyone's going to die someday. Can't you get over it? All right. And then the king says, why don't you stay here instead of going back to school? Queen Gertrude says, yes, that's my prayer, Hamlet. Stay here. Don't go back to Wittenberg. Hamlet says, okay, I will stay here. King Claudius goes, yes, let's have a drink to that. Oh, man, the clouds are going to hear us drink. Woo! All right. Now everyone leaves. Hamlet is left alone. Ugh. That this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into dew. So I wish my skin would melt off and just disappear. Oh, that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. If only God would not have made it a sin to kill myself. Self-slaughter, kill myself. Oh, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seems to me all the uses of this world. Fie on it, fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows the seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to this. I am so unhappy, and no one seems to be noticing, and no one cares, and no one's doing anything about it. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. Not 2. My dad's been dead 2 months. No, not even 2 months yet. So excellent a king that was to this, Hyperion to a Sartor. So loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. My dad was fantastic, and you compare it to this guy? Oh, even my father would chastise the winds if they were too rough on my mother's face. He was a good man. Why must I remember? Why she would hang on him as if an increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, meaning the more she spent with him, the more she needed him, and she was loving and devoted, and it's been a month since he died and they got married? Let me not think on it. Frailty, thy name is woman. Okay. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Niobe, all tears. When my father died and we carried his corpse, she followed in her brand new funeral shoes. She never even wore those shoes out before she got married. She cried. But now she's like, oh, I'm married. No big deal. Oh, God. A beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. An animal would have been sad longer than that. Married my uncle. My father's brother. But no more like my father than I to Hercules. Again, a comparison. Compare me, I'm a wimpy little guy. Compare me to Hercules? My father was amazing compared to Claudius. Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married. A most wicked speed, it happened so fast, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. Okay, this word incest, we're going to see it a lot, and you can choose to believe it or not, but here's what it basically means. Hamlet is saying that my uncle married my mother, and while technically they weren't related except through marriage, Hamlet's saying that's like incest. It's like a brother marrying his sister, and I am appalled by it. It's disgusting. And Hamlet's going to play on this idea of incest throughout the play. In fact, there becomes some questionable Oedipus stuff going on later on in the play. We'll talk about that later. All right, so, oh, wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. The two of you couldn't wait to jump into bed together. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. Okay, so his father's dead. His uncle is now king, which kind of begs a question because I thought that kingship went from fathers to sons. That's why kings wanted to have a son, to have an heir, right? But Claudius, the brother, took over. All right. Okay, so, maybe Hamlet's being a little bit dramatic. His dad's dead. Get over it. It does happen to everybody, but I don't know. 2 months? That's pretty quick. And his mom got married within 1 month? It's kind of questionable. It's pretty fast. Do people have enough time to process their emotions in a month or two? According to Hamlet, they do not, and it's inappropriate, and Hamlet is pretty disgusted. Okay, so that finishes that. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my Sunday. Lots more Hamlet to read. I'm probably going to go take a nap. All right, talk to you later.